Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to talk about the amazing anatomy and physiology of ruminant animals. So, like how cows, sheep, goats, and deer, and many other animals turn grass into energy. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Miss Bree. I'm an educator, a farmer, an illustrator, a singer, and a proud grammar nerd. So, welcome to the farm school. Whoop, went too far. All right, so let's meet the ruminants, right? So imagine standing in a quiet pasture early in the morning. A group of cows slowly walks through tall grass, calmly eating mouthful after mouthful. Nearby, a flock of sheep grazes, and a few goats nibble leaves from a bush. All of these animals share something very special. They are called ruminants. Ruminants are animals that have a unique digestive system, specially designed to turn tough plants like grass into energy. Unlike humans who only have one stomach, we're pretty boring. Ruminants have four different stomach compartments that work together like a powerful food processing machine. Because of this amazing system, animals like cows and sheep, goats, deer, and bison can survive on foods that most animals cannot digest. And, fun fact, did you know that a cow can eat up to 40 pounds of grass per day? Yeah, it's a lot. So, what's the challenge of plant fiber? Why do they need a special stomach system, right? Well, grass may look soft and easy to chew, but inside every blade of grass is a tough material called cellulose. Cellulose, for our vocabulary word, is a tough plant fiber found in cell walls. Okay, cellulose forms the walls of plant cells and acts like a strong protective structure for the plant. The problem is that most animals, including humans, do not have the enzymes needed to break cellulose apart. That means if we tried to live on grass alone, we wouldn't get enough nutrition from it. But ruminants have solved this problem in a fascinating way. Instead of digesting the grass themselves, they rely on tiny living helpers inside their stomachs to do the hard work for them. These are called microorganisms, and we'll learn about them in the future here. So, let's talk about their very special digestive system, okay? To handle tough plant foods, ruminants developed a digestive system with four specialized compartments, okay? And these compartments are called the rumen, which is where ruminant comes from, the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum. Okay? Now, each part of the stomach system has a specific job. Okay? And food travels through them in a particular order. So you can think of this process kind of like a four-stage factory that processes food step by step. So, first, food is softened and fermented, and then it is sorted and chewed again. Next, water is absorbed, and finally, chemical digestion breaks the food down into nutrients that the animals can use. So, together, these four chambers make ruminants some of the most efficient plant eaters on Earth. It's pretty neat. And did you know the rumen alone, just the rumen, can hold over 40 gallons of food and liquid in a cow? Now, granted, it's much smaller in like goats and sheep and that sort of thing, but in a cow, they can hold over 40 gallons just in the rumen alone. It's pretty neat. So let's talk about the rumen, right? That's the first and largest chamber, and it is an incredible place, okay? So you can see over on the left, I've got a picture of a rumen in a star shape, and see how it kind of has all these different patterns and textures? It's really cool. And inside the rumen lives an enormous community of microorganisms, which means tiny living things. So, billions and billions of bacteria, fungi, and protozoa. These tiny organisms form a living ecosystem that helps the animal digest plants. When the animal eats grass, these microbes begin breaking down the cellulose through a process called fermentation. And for our vocabulary word, fermentation is the breakdown of food by microbes without oxygen. Other things that are fermented are things like you can get fermented pickles, and sauerkraut is fermented, and there's a whole like kimchi, there's a whole bunch of different foods that are fermented. So during fermentation, the microbes break the plant fibers apart. They've got little, kind of like little hammers in there banging them apart. And they release the nutrients inside the plant fibers that the animal can use for energy. So, in many ways, the rumen is kind of like a giant fermentation tank, okay, filled with really helpful microbes working nonstop. So, if you imagine it like a little factory, there's a whole bunch of little teeny tiny microbes wearing little hard hats working away in there, right, to help these animals absorb all that energy. Okay, so does that make sense? Great. Now we're going to talk about the reticulum, okay? Now, this is right next to the rumen, and they work really close together. They're best buddies. All right. The reticulum acts like a sorting station. It separates large pieces of food from smaller ones. When food particles are still too large, the reticulum sends them back up the animal's throat and into the mouth to be chewed again. This process is what we call chewing cud. The reticulum also acts like a safety net. If an animal accidentally swallows something heavy, like a small piece of metal, it can trap it so it doesn't damage the rest of the digestive system. So, did you know that this is why farmers sometimes put magnets in cows' stomachs and it falls into the reticulum to help catch metal objects if they eat anything on accident? And if you look into that star, do you see the pattern of the reticulum? It's really cool. Okay, let's move on. So, what is cud? Well, if you have ever watched cows resting in a field, you might notice something curious or odd. Even though they aren't eating grass at that moment, their jaws are slowly moving as they chew. What they are chewing is cud, food that has already been swallowed once and is brought back up to the mouth for more chewing. Remember, we talked about that with the reticulum? So, the second round of chewing helps grind the plant material into much smaller pieces. It also mixes the food with saliva, which helps microbes continue to break it down. This process might seem unusual, but it is one of the most important steps that allows ruminants to digest tough plant fibers. And you can see the cud up in the cups on the left. Now, cud, as our vocabulary word, cud is the partially digested food that ruminants chew again. All right, so now we've talked about the rumen and the reticulum. Now we're going to move on to the omasum. So, after the cud is swallowed again, the food moves into the omasum. The omasum is filled with many thin folds that look like the pages of a book. These folds increase the surface area inside the stomach. Here, the digestive system begins absorbing water and important minerals from the food. The omasum also squeezes and compresses the food into smaller particles, preparing it for the next stage of digestion. Because of its many folds, the omasum is sometimes called many plies. And it's pretty cool because look at the little patterns on it. It's like a little bit spiky on the folds. It's really pretty neat. All right, so let's move on to the last one. Okay, this is the last chamber. And this is the abomasum. Yeah, it's pretty similar to omasum, but it's abomasum. So this is the final stop for the food. This chamber works much more like the stomach in humans and other animals. This is also called the true stomach, and some people call it that. All right, it releases strong digestive acids and enzymes. These chemicals break down proteins and other nutrients into forms that the body can absorb. See the pattern there on the left? It's pretty cool. Interestingly, the abomasum also digests many of the microbes that helped ferment the food earlier. In this way, the animal actually gains nutrition from the microbes themselves. After leaving the abomasum, the food continues into the intestines, where nutrients are then absorbed into the bloodstream. And, for our vocabulary word, anyone remember? Enzymes, that's right, which are proteins that help chemical reactions happen faster. All right, so let's talk about those tiny helpers that we were talking about earlier. The microorganisms, remember tiny living things, living inside the rumen are incredibly important to the survival of ruminant animals. Without these microbes, the animal would not be able to digest grass or plant fiber effectively. In return for helping with digestion, the microbes receive a warm, nutrient rich environment to live in. This relationship, where both organisms benefit, is called symbiosis. Symbiosis. Okay, and remember that because that's a vocabulary word. Symbiosis, a relationship where two living things help each other. This is a perfect example of how living things often depend on each other to survive. So let's follow the journey of a mouthful of grass inside a ruminant's body. Okay? So as you can see on our diagram here, the cow is eating some grass. So firstly, the grass travels down the esophagus or the throat and enters the rumen, which is the largest stomach chamber. Here, billions of microbes begin breaking down plant fibers through fermentation. Next, the food moves into the reticulum, remember, rumen's best friend, where large pieces are sorted and sent back up to the mouth to be chewed again as cud. After the cud is swallowed once more, it enters the omasum, where water and minerals are absorbed. Finally, the food reaches the abomasum, the true stomach, where digestive acids and enzymes break it down further. And lastly, the nutrients are then absorbed in the intestines, providing the animal with the energy it needs to grow, move, and survive. All right, so let's continue. What about inside the body of a ruminant? Like, what does it actually look like, right? Well, we just kind of talked about it, but let's go through it a little bit more detailed. So, inside a ruminant's body is a highly specialized digestive system designed for processing plants, right? We've covered this. We're just kind of reviewing what we've covered so far. So, it all begins in the mouth where grass is torn off and chewed before being swallowed. The food travels down the esophagus into the rumen and reticulum, where microbes begin breaking down plant fibers and cud is formed. From there, the food moves to the omasum, which removes the water and compresses the material. Next is the abomasum, where digestive acids break down food, much like the human stomach. Finally, the nutrients move into the intestines, where they are absorbed and carried throughout the body to support growth, energy, and milk production. This complex system allows ruminants to turn simple plants into the nutrients they need to survive. So, how does it turn grass into energy? Right? I mean, you can see we have grass and all of a sudden it's super energy. Well, when microbes ferment plant fibers, they produce special molecules called volatile fatty acids, often shortened to VFAs. These acids are absorbed through the walls of the rumen and used as the animal's main source of energy. VFAs power many important activities, including growing new tissue, producing milk, moving muscles, and maintaining body temperature. In other words, the microbes transform simple grass into the fuel that keeps the animal alive and active. Have you ever wondered why cows burp? Well, fermentation produces energy, but it also produces gas As a side note, if you ever want to get into fermentation, you'll learn that you even have to burp your fermentation jars because of this same concept. So, as microbes break down plant material, they release gases such as methane and carbon dioxide. These gases must escape from the rumen or they could build up and become dangerous. So, ruminants release the gas by belching, which scientists call eructation. This might sound funny, but it is a very important part of the digestive process. A healthy ruminant burps regularly to release the gases produced during fermentation. Did you know that a cow can produce hundreds of liters of gas per day? Yep. Also, ruminants have special teeth designed for eating plants. Unlike humans, they do not have upper front teeth. Instead, they have a hard structure called a dental pad. It's kind of like a almost like a big pumice stone on the top of their mouth. Their lower front teeth press the plant material against this pad, allowing them to tear grass and leaves efficiently. In the back of their mouths, strong molars grind plant material into smaller pieces. This grinding action helps prepare the food for fermentation inside the rumen. So, why are ruminants important? Why do we care? Well, ruminants play an important role in ecosystems all around the world. By grazing on grasses and plants, they help control plant growth and keep grasslands healthy. Their waste products, or manure, also return nutrients to the soil, helping plants grow again. Humans have relied on ruminant animals for thousands of years for resources such as milk, wool, meat, and leather. Because of their unique digestive systems, ruminants can convert plants that humans cannot eat into valuable food and materials. So let's meet some of the ruminants, right? We went over a few, but many animals you may recognize are ruminants. On farms, common ruminants include cattle, sheep, goats, even, little things like llamas and alpacas are ruminants. In the wild, animals like deer, elk, moose, antelope, giraffes, and bison, even camels, also share this type of digestive system. So, even though these animals live in very different environments, from forests to grasslands to savannas to deserts, they all rely on the same remarkable digestive process. Isn't that cool? So, let's review what we've learned. Ruminants are animals with four-part stomachs designed to digest tough plant materials. Food travels through the rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum, each of which performs a different step in digestion. Helpful microorganisms inside the rumen break down plant fibers through fermentation. Ruminants also chew cud to further break down food and improve digestion. Together, these features allow ruminant animals to turn grass and plants into energy. Before we finish, here's a few amazing facts about ruminants. Did you know that cows spend 6 to 8 hours each day chewing cud? Yeah, that's why they're always laying down chewing. 6 to 8 hours a day chewing cud. Did you know that the reason sheep and goats have rectangular pupils is that it helps them see predators approaching from wide angles? Mm-hmm. Even though it looks funny. Deer and giraffes are also ruminants, even though their body shapes look very different from cows and sheep. All these animals remind us that nature has developed incredible ways for living things to survive and thrive, and it all starts with a truly remarkable digestive system. So thanks guys for coming today, and I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll be back tomorrow for another one. I will see you then. Stay tuned for each video every day.